Part 1 of our sail in the 27-foot Albin Vega Sitka to London, linked below, took us from Woodbridge, Suffolk, down the River Deben. Part 2 across the Thames estuary to the Swale, and Part 3 up the River Medway to Chatham. This is Part 4 up the historic River Thames to Limehouse Marina, London. We stayed the night in Chatham Marina, and the next morning walked to the historic Dockyard, paying first for a conducted tour of the rope works.
Three of them together close a cable lay rope. It's your anchor cable. That's the travelling end. Down the far end you've got the standing machine. That's powered, both of them have the hooks powered by this rope running along here below the ceiling. That's the drive rope. It's powered by a capstan at the end, mounted on its side, if you like, in the ceiling. And you can operate it using a rope that curls down further down there. It's sort of a darker yellow rope. You just see the end of it here. That's known as a boater. That's the control rope. It's got red and green rags hanging on from various places to start and stop. As you go down, you'll see many examples of tops, ropes, Maudsley machines, and you'll notice it's all duplicated over on the right side there on a larger scale for the heavier ropes. So your cable lay rope, your cables for your anchors and so on, made on the right hand side, smaller ropes, moderate sizes, done on this side.
They still make traditional rope here, and a few years back I bought 15 fathoms of hemp for my 1885 17-ton fishing smack Alberta, seen here running through one of the ash mainsheet blocks I made. A wonderful museum of old and not so old craft. We locked out the next day into the Medway, heading downstream to Queensborough. The forecast was for headwinds later, when the tide was ebbing, but we decided to take the early calm and buck the flood. Past Upnor Castle, built from 1560 to protect both the Dockyard and ships of the Royal Navy anchored in the Medway. Past the reflection of mothballed Kingsnorth Power Station and Fort Darnet, built in 1859. Comes the morning breeze. Next wave of wind coming in. The east wind freshened as we picked up a buoy by the new Queensborough pontoon and harbour master's office. The forecast was good for going up the Thames, with light easterlies followed by westerlies the next day to come back. Perfect, we thought, but we didn't have access to this synoptic chart I downloaded at home later. The complex collection of lows and fronts must have made forecasting difficult, and as it turned out was totally wrong in both speed and direction. East 3 to 4 turned out to be west 4/6 to 7. Leaving Queensborough at 6:30 the next morning was quiet enough. Yeah. Leaving Queensborough, 6:30, grey morning, black, calm pretty well, very little wind, on our way up to Limehouse. Sheerness and Garrison Point to starboard. Car transporter. Most hideous things designed by man. Garrison Point. Then hanging a left at the Grain Edge mark to cut across the Sheerness Middle Sand into the Nor Sand Swatchway to cut the corner into the Thames. From that green to that red. Shoals to left, shoals to right, and bucking the last of the ebb up the Thames estuary before we get to the river proper. Follow that ship. London's that way. Leaving the Medway. Isle of Grain. Heading out into the Thames. With the Yantlet on the Kent coast. Off the Yantlet and the Thames Gateway docks, it rained and oilies donned. Summer sailing in England. The wind increased in Mucking Reach as Peter did a stalwart job cooking breakfast, the sausages taking flight across the cabin. Past Tilbury docks to starboard and Gravesend to port. Into 26 gusting 30 knots of wind against tide made for a lumpy ride, not the gentle following wind that was forecast. Wind against tide. The Queen Elizabeth II Bridge carries the M25 motorway London Ring Road over the river, the first Thames bridge with older tunnels under. Rainham Marshes landfill site is well known to Peter. The covered jetty was hit by a freighter and the rebuild can be seen by the different coloured cladding. The high hills are all built from London waste. The wind picked up again on the nose in Barking Reach. Royal Albert Dock entrance, now home to the Galleons Point Marina and London City Airport. Wrong again. The Woolwich ferry crosses astern of us. After the North Sea flood of 1953, the Thames barrier was completed in 1982 and since then there have been over 174 flood defence closures. The largest gap is the same width as Tower Bridge. The barrier has survived 15 boat collisions without serious damage. Emirates Airline cable car opened in 2012 at a cost of £60 million, 3 times the estimate. It is the most expensive cable car in the world. It has a capacity of 2,600 passengers an hour, but lately handles less than 250 an hour. It scares the pants off tourists in high winds as they swing about 300 feet above the Thames. The former Millennium Dome, a big tent, was built in 1999 to house an exhibition celebrating the turn of the third millennium. It was leased to the American billionaire Philip Anschutz of Meridian Delta, who turned it into the largest entertainment district in London and hugely successful. The O2 is still known as the Dome. The Dutch Navy here reminds me that in 1667 a Dutch fleet sailed into the Thames and attacked the British fleet in the Medway, a major defeat for the Royal Navy, a victory that helped end the Second Anglo-Dutch War. The old Greenwich Hospital, now part of the University of Greenwich since 1998. On the hill above is the Royal Observatory Greenwich, the basis of longitude and world time. We sail over the Greenwich Meridian from the Eastern Hemisphere to the Western Hemisphere as visitors here straddle the world. The mast of the 1869 tea clipper Cutty Sark, now a static museum. She was named after a witch's short chemise. Canary Wharf is now a centre of banking, with surrounding old warehouses converted into expensive dwellings. Deptford Creek Dockyard, founded by Henry VIII in 1513. It built ships used by Cook, Vancouver, Bligh and Nelson. Into Limehouse Marina.
Right. Here we are in Limehouse. 1 o'clock, thereabouts. Quicker than we thought, despite the weather on the nose.
It's quite a light tide as well.
Quite a light tide, yes. Docklands Light Railway.
That night we had a good meal in the pub across the road. Limehouse, or in London English, Limehouse, is from the Old English limast, meaning lime kilns. Limehouse became a significant port in late medieval times, with extensive docks and wharves and industries such as shipbuilding, chandlering and rope making. Limehouse Basin opened in 1820 as the Regent's Canal dock. This was an important connection between the Thames and the canal system, where cargoes could be transferred from larger ships to the shallow draft canal boats. This mix of vessels can still be seen in the basin, canal narrowboats rubbing shoulders with sea-going yachts. Plenty of duckweed in the fresh water of the Regent's Canal and the Marina. Next day we locked out near high water and looked forward to taking the ebb downriver with a following wind. The lock gates open and the road bridge swings clear as we continue our cruise in part 5.